So the harsh truth about the dating scene is that the hottest girls are actually the ones who run the dating scene. They are the most in demand and they know exactly how to keep you chasing to get what they want. And have you ever noticed how they have a seemingly endless supply of options and guys bending over backwards to try and impress them? Meanwhile with you, they get flaky, they leave you on red, and they pop back up from time to time on their own terms like it's just no big deal and your time doesn't matter. But what if I told you that you could actually learn from their playbook and that the whole hot girl mindset isn't just for women? And if you're smart, it can actually serve as a game plan that can help you get more attractive women. So in this video, I'm breaking down some of the key traits of what the hottest girls often do so you can steal them and boost your own dating game. And the reason I say that they run the entire dating game is because beauty is hypnotizing. Most men will find themselves going out of their way to do all kinds of things for a beautiful woman, and many will compromise the boundaries that they usually stick to in order to get that woman. And I'm sure you can relate to this. Think back to a time where an attractive woman was just so charming and captivating that you started behaving in a way that wasn't really like you, or you knew you were falling into some typical lame nice guy behaviors to try and win this girl over, and you were breaking your own rules. Or how about just checking your phone every 15 minutes to see if she's texted you back yet? You know you've done something like this with a girl that you viewed as being really attractive, because we've all done it at some point, myself included. Trust me when I tell you, I've literally made all the mistakes in the past, which is why I make this content and have a coaching program so I can help guys avoid the same pitfalls that screwed me up for years and wasted literally thousands of hours until I understood how things really work with women and how to actually date more attractive women and succeed overall. But these mistakes are bound to happen at some point to the vast majority of men, and most guys will also find themselves being more eager than ever with a hot girl because internal biology is essentially screaming at you to mate with this woman because of her high level of beauty. And that leads to all kinds of bad habits like more and more texting, more yapping in person, and chasing girls that aren't right for you or don't actually like you as much as you like them. It can come in many forms, but the idea is that when you're with a woman who you view as a 9 or a 10, you're always going to be challenged in your mind like you cannot believe. I don't care how alpha or stoic you are, when you come across that one type of girl that feels elite to you, your internal state is truly tested, and most guys typically fail at that point, and some sense of urgency usually kicks in to want to get this girl as soon as possible and keep her around. But beautiful women, on the other hand, are rarely in a hurry, and I would say that they are basically never in a hurry. You will notice that the hottest women are often the ones who move the slowest. They might take a day or two to respond to a message of yours, or even longer. They might disappear for weeks or months and randomly pop back up again, or if you go to set a date with them, you may be met with a lukewarm response where it's difficult to actually set the date, or she just leaves you on red and comes back another time. Or there's the classic one where a girl leaves you undelivered or on red in the middle of a conversation, then she just continues watching your stories on Instagram. You'll definitely run into that one at some point with these kinds of girls. And that's not to say that every single one of them does things like this, because some of the most attractive women I've dated have been some of the most responsive and easy to set up a date with. But they do generally share the trait where they are never in a hurry. And that's just because they don't have to be. Like, think about it. If you were a woman and constantly living in abundance to where tons of guys are trying to sleep with you all the time, would you really be double and triple texting any guy? Or would you really be sitting there thinking about them around the clock? Of course you wouldn't. And that's the type of patience that you need to adapt as a guy with women in general. Anytime you seem like you're in a hurry, you immediately trigger the neediness and desperate tripwire with women. And that tripwire is even more sensitive with the most attractive women because they are the most experienced across a massive variety of men. Again, if we go back to the abundance factor, the hottest women are the ones who are constantly dealing with weird DMs online or approaches in person from guys who are clearly putting on a front to get laid. And these men almost always act goofy, weird, and feminine around them, which creates a large bank of experience to where these women become very sharp at identifying weak and supplicating behavior, including desperation and neediness. But moving on, an attractive woman's natural abundance and lack of needing to move quickly also leads to being naturally outcome independent. Again, going back to the idea of living in abundance, if you're a guy that's getting a lot of attention from women, would you really be overly invested in any singular outcome? Would you really care all that much if a date didn't come to fruition with one girl, or you weren't really feeling her after the first date? Or would you just figure that there will be more girls tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, etc.? The answer is obvious, and that is the mindset that the most attractive women form, at least on the front end of all of this, meaning from the point where they meet a guy up to the first 1 or 5 dates or so. They're obviously human like anyone else, so they can be emotionally hooked by a guy eventually, but at first it's going to be a challenge for most guys to get to that point because of the woman woman's outcome independence. A really attractive woman may be willing to go out on a date with you or hang out, but they aren't going to be super invested in things working out. It's more of a testing period for them at that point to see if you're for real or not and where things go from there. Guys, on the other hand, will be sprinting around the house before the date, fist pumping in the air and telling their boys that they're about to go out with a 9, and then try to nail every single moment perfectly on the date so that they can get this girl in bed or make her his girlfriend. There's a lot of excitement and thinking into the future and planning ahead that kicks off right away for most guys because, again, beauty is hypnotizing. But you can tame your reactions. You're not helpless to these kinds of things, and being in genuine abundance is always the goal, but you can emulate the traits of abundance even if you're not living that life currently. But the whole idea of outcome independence is that it will naturally slow your eagerness down because you're not actually attached to an outcome, and that is the best place to be in mentally. But realize that the second you get attached to an outcome with a woman, you've already lost the battle in your mind and overextended yourself. And really, this is a lesson for life in general too, not just women. But when you attach to an outcome with women, it always leads to behavior that is out of character for you and usually results in you cringing later, wondering why you said something goofy or did something that messed up the interaction. Your decision-making ability becomes impaired and you'll wonder why. But the cause of that impairment is being overly invested in the outcome, which attractive women are much better at managing than most men. Now, more traits that come from the source of an attractive woman's abundance is a natural aura of nonchalance, indifference, flakiness, and focus on themselves. Going back to the first point, when you are genuinely in a state where you aren't in a hurry at all, you will begin to exhibit real nonchalance and indifference to things. You'll have situations where you glance at a text message and figure, I'll just reply later, and then you forget and 2 days go by all of a sudden. Or you'll have girls pursuing you and you might brush it off like, maybe some other time. And compare and contrast that to the guy that is watching the clock trying to wait to text back before 2.3 hours have passed so he doesn't look too available or needy. It's pretty obvious who is going to come off genuinely attractive between those two guys. And those are the exact behaviors that you'll run into with some of the hottest women. They have this natural nonchalance to them where nothing really matters all that much, and their replies will be brief or not very expressive unless the guy really stands out. They're just indifferent to outcomes early on, like I stated before. So there will be this lack of urgency, like there's just always more time, there's always more guys, so why bother right now? They'll think, I'll just get to it later, and if not him, there will be another guy. Plus, there's a natural feeling of burnout that happens too when you're overloaded with options. In another video, which I'll link at the end of this one, I referenced the fact that I had over 1,000 matches on dating apps in a week between Hinge and Bumble, and the natural indifference kicked in immediately. I just didn't care about a lot of the conversations, even with cute girls, and this exact thing has been happening to the guys that I coach. It's one of those things that just naturally starts happening when you generate a lot of options, and it kicks in quick. So as a guy, if you experience something like this, you'll get why these women are indifferent. It starts to make a lot of sense. You start to understand their perspective and internalize it, which ironically makes you more attractive. Now, again, even if you don't have a true abundance of options at this point, you can still emulate the actions and behaviors of someone who does, even if you don't feel that way on the inside yet. There is a degree of fake it till you make it that you'll have to implement in certain parts of your dating journey. But there's a difference between just copying behaviors and truly embodying and feeling this mindset. When your mindset really transforms, that's where this indifference becomes your default state, and it only happens when you create real, tangible abundance in your life, because it's a natural psychological shift that occurs when you actually experience having options. And while having consistent interactions with women is one starting point, the real key is understanding how to navigate those experiences efficiently so that they reshape your baseline reality instead of just giving you surface level confidence or temporary hits of dopamine that fade quickly. And this is why so much standard dating advice fails. It focuses on temporary band-aid fixes without creating the underlying conditions that naturally produce lasting change. And the most attractive women are basically locked into this state 24/7, which is also why it becomes so shocking for them when they age and that attention begins to fade in some cases. They either adapt and accept it, or they try to desperately hang on. And I talked about this in another video, because sometimes there can actually be some downsides to always dating a lot of women as a guy. You basically condition yourself to be a certain way. You can become dependent on female validation because you get used to having it around all the time. And when it disappears, you really feel its absence and want it back. And the hottest women experience this same effect, just a bit different. And when that attention suddenly stops, their entire reality gets flipped upside down, bringing out their own version of neediness. Because I'm sure we've all seen that 45-year-old woman on social media with 5 filters, caked on makeup, spilling out of her top, and blatantly chasing attention. That's the female equivalent of nice guy neediness, and just like how it makes us cringe, women cringe when guys do the male version, which is pouring on attention and trying to win them over with typical nice guy mistakes. This is why you want to emulate another key trait of attractive women, which is focusing on yourself and keeping your value high. Beautiful women naturally focus on what they want to do next. It's why they often ignore guys. They're operating in abundance, so it's easy for them to focus on themselves when there's always another 10 guys trying to slide in, and most of those guys just act in an unattractive way anyway, so they typically assume that these guys will just eliminate themselves and be a disappointment. But when you're in scarcity and you can't find a date, that becomes the glaring hole in your life and the most intense pain, and it makes it difficult to think about anything else. But focusing on yourself is something you can definitely emulate while still actively dating and being social. And I'm definitely not advocating for those guys who say, I'm just going to focus on myself and quit dating altogether, because dating skills need consistent practice to stay sharp. And if you've never developed them, it takes time to get them down, and you have to stay active to keep them sharp, because they will get rusty fast, literally in a matter of weeks. So I never recommend giving up on dating or giving up on interacting with women completely, not even for monk mode or whatever else. The key is balance. Women should be a small percentage of your overall day, week, or month, and the vast majority of your time should be spent on self-development and raising your own value and pursuing your interests, just like the most attractive women do. And this blend of not being in a hurry, nonchalance, and self-focus naturally leads to something else you'll recognize in a lot of attractive girls, and that is flakiness. As a man, when you're genuinely focused on your own path, you'll find yourself considering backing out of plans that don't completely align with your priorities. You might wake up and think, I actually don't feel like meeting that girl today. I got other things I want to take care of. And look, I'm not saying that being flaky is some great trait, because personally, I hate it. But when you're genuinely on a mission in life, pursuing goals that align with a higher value version of yourself, the thought of rescheduling or canceling will naturally cross your mind more often, and this intensifies even more if you're in abundance with women. This is why the most attractive women are usually the hardest to pin down. And I say usually because sometimes they'll surprise you and actually be the most reliable and easy to make plans with. But a lot of them will be the polar opposite and difficult to set plans with. Some of them will require you to play the long game, even if they find you attractive, which is a more advanced game plan that actually takes finesse, the right mindset, and patience to pull off correctly. But in general, you have to expect to play a more patient game with a lot of these girls and emulate the same traits that they embody. And as you can imagine, if you had all of these traits, you're not going to be pedestaling women very often, if ever. The most attractive women aren't pedestaling men either. Unless you're a celebrity yourself, you're probably not going to be receiving hard eyes emojis in your comment section for no reason on Instagram, nor will you be receiving "Hey handsome, good morning" text when she just started talking to you yesterday. But guys, on the other hand, will do this kind of thing with women right off the bat because they are pedestaling her due to her beauty. Beauty is just that powerful. It just completely breaks men unless you choose to not let it break you. If you can control that mindset and see past her beauty and keep her off the pedestal, it will synergize with these other traits to create a much more attractive version of you. And one of the ways you take her off the pedestal is you see her as a human with flaws. You have to understand that a lot of these attractive girls aren't actually that impressive once all the makeup and enhancements come off. I have a lot of women that I'm friends with or acquaintances with, so I get to see a unique view on both sides of the coin with dating. And even women, like when they see a picture of a girl, they'll often say things like, "Oh, she's really pretty, but do you think she still looks good without all that makeup?" Because they are especially aware of how the enhancements can make or break things, and they won't even be fully sold on a girl's beauty just because she's dolled up. And women often have better discernment in that regard than guys do, because they obviously understand all the tricks to enhance themselves, and guys can learn a lot from that approach. The chick who you think is a 9 is probably like a 6 or a 7 at best when she's not all done up. And that's fine. She could still be beautiful, and I'm not trying to bash women by saying something like that. But what I am doing is trying to keep things in perspective for you as a man, so you don't get hypnotized by beauty to the point where she's above you in your mind, because when that happens, that's where you'll blow everything. And attractive women are also really good at maximizing their value on a daily basis. The hottest girls know that their appearance is extremely important, so they're always doing something to maximize it. They've got the 42-step skincare routine every day, they lotion 3 times a day, they have a 4-phase hair product routine in the shower, they go to the gym, some of them might get surgeries done, they don't eat a lot of food, and they keep their appetite in check, and they find new ways of doing their makeup, or they try new hairstyles. It just goes on and on. on. They're just really good at maximizing their most valuable attributes, and guys could learn so much from this approach. And for us, it's not just about looks. It's about maximizing all of our most valuable attributes, from looks to finances to personality to improving your communication with women, increasing your skills with various hobbies, and it goes on and on. There's so many areas that you can boost as a guy that it's actually one of the advantages for us, because women can fall in love with a variety of things about you. Guys are pretty binary on the other hand. If the girl isn't cute, we're already not interested, and it just falls off from there. It doesn't matter if that girl is the world's best piano player or a doctor or whatever, because for most guys, if she's not physically attractive, she's just done for. And of course, looks do matter when it comes to women, and you have to pass a woman's looks threshold to get in the door with her. But from there, women can fall in love in a variety of ways. A woman might think that your elite piano skills are hot, or she finds you attractive because you're the funniest guy at the improv club, or she thinks it's sexy when you chop wood in the backyard. There's a lot of things they can latch onto and admire about you. But the idea to emulate here is that the most attractive women know what their strengths are, and they look to maximize them and keep them maximized on a daily basis without fail. And if guys followed this one simple idea, so many problems would iron themselves out naturally, but most simply won't do it. However, if you are one of the guys that will maximize those areas, it becomes an easy way to separate yourself from the crowd, and that's when you stand out in the best way possible. And here's the thing, you already have qualities that women are drawn to, you just need to know how to show them off in the best way and communicate in a way that actually attracts them. And most guys don't even realize how inefficient their dating strategy is, or how much their look and communication with women is actually working against them. But when you get those things right, everything changes. So if you're ready to feel truly confident in your abilities with women, make sure to hit the first link in the description, because I'd love to help you get there. And with that said, I will see you in the next one.